Liam doesn't work the night shift anymore. He can't. Not after what happened during his last few weeks at the Maximart superstore, one of those vast hangar-like buildings squatting on the edge of town, surrounded by empty parking lots and whispering fields under the indifferent gaze of the moon. His job, stocking shelves and performing inventory checks after the store closed at 11 p.m., often meant long hours alone in the cavernous, echoing space. He'd always found the place inherently creepy after hours. The main lights would shut off automatically at midnight, leaving only the harsh, buzzing emergency fluorescence high overhead. They cast long, distorted shadows down the endless aisles, turning familiar displays of brightly colored merchandise into looming, misshapen monoliths. The silence was immense, broken only by the hum of freezer units, the occasional clunk of the ancient HVAC system kicking in, or the distant rumble of a truck on the highway miles away. Sounds seemed to travel strangely in the cavernous space, echoing, distorting. Liam often told himself the fleeting movements he caught in his peripheral vision, the faint scrapes or taps he heard from distant aisles, were just tricks of light and sound, products of fatigue and an overactive imagination fueled by too much coffee. He needed the job. He told himself to ignore it. One Tuesday night, or perhaps Wednesday morning, the hours bled together into one long, caffeine-fueled stretch. He was deep in the warehouse section at the back of the store. Section C, lawn and garden. Rows upon rows of 50-pound bags of fertilizer and mulch stacked high, casting dense shadows. Pallets loaded with terracotta pots, plastic lawn flamingos, and tightly bound bundles of bamboo stakes. He was kneeling, methodically scanning barcodes on bags of peat moss with his handheld inventory device, the red laser beam cutting a sharp line through the gloom. That's when he heard it. Not the usual settling creak or distant hum. This was distinct. A soft but solid thump. It came from the adjacent aisle, Aisle D, which housed the seasonal overflow, mostly Halloween and Christmas decorations packed away in large cardboard boxes, stacked high on industrial shelving, waiting for their respective seasons. Liam froze, listening. The silence pressed back in, thick and absolute. "Hello?" he called out, his voice sounding small, swallowed by the vastness. "Anyone there? Cleaning crew?" Usually, the cleaners started at the front and worked their way back, but maybe they'd changed the routine. No response. Just the low hum of the distant freezers. He tried to rationalize it. A box settling? A rat, maybe? The place probably had rats the size of small dogs. He shook his head, forcing himself back to the task, the red beam dancing across another barcode. Scan. Beep. Then came the second sound, closer this time. Unmistakably from Aisle D, a soft, dragging scrape, like something heavy, something with a rough surface, being pulled slowly across the smooth concrete floor. It lasted only a second, then stopped. Okay, no, that wasn't a rat, that wasn't settling. Every hair on Liam's arms stood on end. His heart started a heavy, uneven rhythm against his ribs. He slowly stood up, his knees cracking in the silence. He gripped the heavy inventory scanner like a potential weapon, though he knew it was useless. Against every instinct screaming at him to run, morbid curiosity, or perhaps just disbelief, propelled him forward. He moved cautiously to the end of Aisle C, the concrete cold beneath his worn sneakers. He peered around the towering end-cap display of garden gnomes, into the shadowed canyon of Aisle D. It was darker here. The nearest emergency light was further down, casting long, distorted shadows from the tall shelving units crammed with identical brown cardboard boxes. He scanned the length of the aisle. Nothing seemed immediately out of place, just rows and rows of silent boxes. Wait. His eyes snagged on something halfway down. A large box, clearly labeled Halloween animatronic display, which do not open until September, wasn't sitting squarely on its pallet with the others. It was pulled out slightly, sitting crookedly in the middle of the aisle floor, as if someone had tried to move it, or as if something had pushed its way out. A cold dread, sharp and specific, trickled down Liam's spine. He knew this aisle. He'd done the post-holiday inventory here himself just 2 months ago. Everything had been sealed, stacked, secured. No one had any reason to be back here, certainly not moving heavy display boxes in the middle of the night. He started backing away slowly, quietly, deciding right then that the peat moss inventory could absolutely wait until daylight. He just wanted to get back to the relative safety of the brightly lit employee break room at the front of the store. As he reached the end of the aisle, ready to turn and flee, he heard one final sound emanate from the darkness behind him, from the direction of that displaced, crooked box. It wasn't a thump. It wasn't a scrape. It was a soft, wet sighing sound, like air escaping slowly from punctured lungs, or like something unfolding itself after being cramped for a long time. It was quiet, but it echoed horribly in the silence, inhuman and deeply unsettling. Liam didn't look back. He ran. He didn't care how loud his footsteps were, didn't care about procedure. He sprinted through the maze of aisles, the shadows seeming to reach for him, the hum of the building sounding like a low growl. He burst into the break room, heart pounding, gasping for air, startling the lone cleaner who was mopping the floor near the entrance. He tried to explain what he'd heard, what he'd seen, to his supervisor the next morning. The moved box, the noises, the sigh. The supervisor, a tired man who'd clearly heard his share of strange night shift stories, just sighed himself and blamed rodents or the building's aging structure. He told Liam to get more sleep. Liam handed in his resignation the following week. He found another job, one with strictly daytime hours, in a much smaller, much brighter building. He says the memory of that night still haunts him. The vast, echoing silence, the displaced box, and that soft, wet sighing sound emerging from the darkness where the Halloween decorations waited. He never found out what made the noise, and he's profoundly grateful he didn't stay long enough to see it. The curated unreality of online dating profiles is something Sarah understood well. People present idealized versions, carefully chosen photos, witty bios crafted to attract. She approached the apps with a healthy dose of skepticism, but nothing prepared her for the chilling discovery she made while scrolling through the profile of a guy named Mark. He seemed promising initially. They matched on Hinge, or maybe it was Bumble. The apps blurred together after a while. His profile name was just Mark S. Mid-30s, worked in finance, or so he claimed. Pictures showed a pleasant, if unremarkable, face, smiling with friends at a barbecue, posing awkwardly by a waterfall on a hike, a standard bathroom selfie showcasing a slightly forced grin. His bio mentioned loving dogs, craft beer and spontaneous adventures. Generic, but harmless enough. They exchanged messages for about a week. Polite chit-chat, questions about work, hobbies, favorite movies. Mark seemed nice, maybe a little bland, but responsive. He asked to meet for coffee. Sarah was hesitant, not feeling a strong connection, but she kept the option open, telling him she was busy that week. One quiet evening, curled up on her sofa, Sarah found herself idly browsing Mark's profile again, trying to decide if he was worth meeting in person. She swiped through the 5 photos he'd posted. The barbecue picture, the waterfall hike, the selfie, a cute shot with a golden retriever, and then the last one, the one that looked older, slightly grainy, taken indoors at what appeared to be a family gathering. Mark stood, younger, maybe college-aged, beaming. Arm slung around a woman who looked like his mother, flanked by an older man, his father, and a teenage girl, his sister. Standard family photo. Except for the background. Behind the smiling family group, partially obscured by Mark's shoulder and his father's head, was a built-in bookshelf, crammed with books and assorted knickknacks. Sarah, perhaps out of boredom, perhaps driven by some subconscious reporter's instinct to look closer, pinched her phone screen, zooming in on the details behind the main subjects. The bookshelf held a typical collection: thick paperbacks, some hardcovers, what looked like textbooks or manuals on one shelf, a small, framed landscape painting, a cluster of ceramic figurines, and then her eye caught it. On the middle shelf, tucked between a biography of some historical figure and a collection of what looked like Shakespearean plays, was another small, framed photograph. It was tiny in the context of the larger photo, blurred by the distance and the digital zoom. Almost impossible to make out. But Sarah squinted, tilting her phone, zooming in further, pushing the pixels to their absolute limit. The image sharpened just enough. Her breath caught in her throat. Her blood ran cold. The tiny photograph on Marcus S. family bookshelf, in a picture taken years ago, long before Hinge or Bumble even existed, was unmistakably, terrifyingly her. It wasn't a picture she recognized from her own social media. It wasn't a selfie or a posed shot. It was candid. Her, sitting alone at an outdoor table at the Daily Grind, her favorite neighborhood cafe, captured mid-sip from a coffee cup, looking slightly pensive, sunlight filtering through the leaves overhead. A picture taken maybe a year and a half ago. A picture she had absolutely no memory of being taken. A picture she had never seen before, never posted, never shared. Yet there it was, framed, sitting on a bookshelf belonging to the family of the man she had just matched with online. A man she had never met. A man whose real identity was now terrifyingly uncertain. How? The question screamed in her mind. How was this possible? Was Mark S. someone she knew from the past using a fake profile? Had he somehow obtained this photo years ago? Or, more chillingly, had he taken it? Had he been watching her, observing her, documenting her life from the shadows long before their innocuous online match? Was the entire profile, the pleasant messages, the request for coffee, just an elaborate patient trap laid by a stalker? Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. Her hands trembled violently as she fumbled with her phone. Unmatch, block, report profile, delete app. She felt watched, even alone in her locked apartment. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the corner seemed menacing. She spent a sleepless night jumping at every sound, peering nervously through her blinds at the empty street below. The next day, she filed a police report, showing them the screenshot she'd frantically taken of the zoomed-in photo before deleting everything. The officer was polite but dismissive. Without a real name, without a direct threat, without proof of stalking beyond the unsettling photo, there was little they could do. "Probably just a weird coincidence, ma'am," he'd suggested. "Maybe an old girlfriend who looked like you." Sarah knew it wasn't a coincidence. She knew it wasn't an old girlfriend. It was her face, her cafe, her moment stolen and displayed like a trophy. She never heard from Mark S. again. His profile vanished completely, but the experience left a permanent scar. She moved apartments a few months later. She rarely goes to the daily grind anymore. She's sworn off dating apps entirely. Sometimes, she says, when she walks down the street, she still gets that prickling sensation on the back of her neck, the feeling of unseen eyes watching her. And she wonders who else might have a picture of her she doesn't know about, hidden away on a dusty shelf, waiting in the background of their seemingly normal